Well, you know, I looked it up. Canada provides 40% of oil, Saudi Arabia 9%, and yet he's so nasty to Canada. Justin Trudeau didn't kill anybody, and he's mean to Canada and nice to the Saudis. So what can we make of that? There's another reason. We don't know what it is. Maybe it has to do with the fact that they bailed him out of bankruptcy at one time. Maybe it's the fact that they bought the entire floor at Trump Tower one time. All these little things that have to do with his pocketbook and not ours.
Exactly. And you know, I think it's all public record. And as Americans, we really need to educate ourselves, because we really do need a full accounting of his where his money comes from, because the emoluments clause is very clear. The president should never put his personal wealth before American lives, America in general, and American interests. And it just seems to me, like you just said, Joy, when you look at his, you know, he's bragged about his financial relationship with Saudi Arabia. I think we have a clip of something he said at an Alabama campaign rally. Do we have
Saudi Arabia, and I get along great with all of them. They buy apartments from me. They spend $40 million, $50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I like them very much.
See, and in 1986, Osama bin Laden's brother, Shafia bin Laden, lived in Trump Tower. We also know that since 2016, Saudi bookings at his Chicago hotels have gone up 169%, a similar uptick in Saudi bookings in New York. So what we have to ask ourselves, I think, as Americans is, if the Saudis are intentionally lining his pockets, what do they expect in return? That is the question. And perhaps they expect to get a pass on the killing of Jamal Khashoggi.
Right. There have been a couple of statements made by a couple of Republicans
against the president.
Against the president. One of them being Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul.
Right. Do you have what they said, baby?
Many things. I mean, Rand Paul, who it's a cold day in hell when I agree with him, said the president indicates that Saudi Arabia is the lesser two evils compared to Iran, so the U.S. won't punish Saudi Arabia for the brutal killing and dismemberment of a dissident journalist in their consulate. I disagree. Listen, I knew we were going to come out here on the show today and have a beautiful Thanksgiving spread. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. Jamal Khashoggi was cut up into little pieces and brutally murdered for being a dissident journalist. His family are Americans here in this country. There's a tectonic shift happening in our country right now where human rights violations, we're okaying them. We don't have the same response that we once did. And I think it's the reason why the Magnitsky Act continues to be so important. And it's worth noting that 17 Saudi nationals on Thursday were sanctioned because of the Magnitsky Act and their connection to this killing. I believe in America where we are a beacon, as Ronald Reagan said, a shining beacon on top of a hill and a city upon a hill. And I just don't know where we are as a country where you can slaughter a journalist and we're going to bat an eye. We're going to say there will be no ramifications for this. And it sends a message globally that you can brutally murder journalists and it's okay. And our president won't listen to the audio because it's too intense to hear. And it's a really sad day in America. I don't know what's happening. And I don't mean to make this about my father, but things were very different when he was around, and I feel very unsafe, and that we're shifting in a way that is very dangerous, and it's not the America I grew up in, it's not the America I want.
There was no Republican to take the place of John McCain.
It's not just him, though. Some of these people should step up.
I mean, the other day we were talking about the Navy SEAL McRaven, who captured bin Laden, and Trump dissed him. He helped capture bin Laden, and Donald Trump basically dissed him and said, well, they should have captured him sooner.
Well, bin Laden's brother is living at Trump Tower. Of course he's going to say something like that. It's about personal life.
But the GOP put out a statement saying, well, you know, this guy, McRaven, did back Hillary, thus saying that they are backing Donald Trump in that statement. What the hell is going on with the GOP that they would say something like that against a Navy SEAL hero in this country? That's what I want to know. The Republican Party.
Going back to the clip that we played in the intro, his response to reporters saying that he cares about America first. There's nothing America first about throwing your intelligence community under the bus. Ever. And we have seen this time and time again. And these are moments where a president either rises as a true leader or you fail miserably. And I think he's failed miserably on this because these are the two of the most important issues that we hold so dear to us as Americans. As Megan mentioned, human rights, but also freedom of speech. And if we don't stand for that, if we don't stand strongly for that, what are we as a country? What do we stand for? So a State Department official who has seen the version of the CIA's assessment of what they found said it is, quote, blindly obvious that the Crown Prince not only knew about it, but ordered the murder of this journalist.
high confidence.
And the president saying he's not even sure
But
if the crown prince even knows.
We should
that he
also
did
say
or not.
Marco Rubio made a great point that human rights violations lead to mass migration, help extremism flourish, and often result in new governments' hostility towards the United States because we support their oppressors.
Yeah.
So when we support oppression, when we support murderous dictatorships, when we're supposed to be a beacon of freedom globally, again, it's a tectonic shift of what it means to be Americans, and it's very depressing to tell you all this the day before Thanksgiving.
Well, but you know what it will do? I hope that it will remind people what our freedoms are about, so that we can give thanks for how free we are, and we can still protest and scream out loud when we see things that are wrong, because nobody needs to take this. Nobody needs to be quiet about this. If this happens here, it's going to happen over here, and pretty soon it's going to be happening right there. So we owe it to ourselves as Americans to remember what Thanksgiving means and why we give thanks. And I know you're going to say, okay, well, please, I know you have a break. Yes, we're